What does it take for someone whose life was spent directing other people's stories to finally speak her own? To step into the spotlight, to host a show about recovery, and invite others to share theirs. In this episode, you'll hear how that turning point happened and why it still sends ripples through everything that our next guest does.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Before we jump in, I want to plant a seed. If you've ever felt pressured to stay small or quiet or safe, if you've wondered what it might take to turn your story into your platform, Amplify Sober Voices is built for you. On January 15th, 2026 in Orlando, we're gathering speakers and coaches and podcasters and writers, creators, people who just don't want to survive sober. They want to lead with purpose. Now, tickets are available now at amplifysobervoices.com. Seriously, go ahead, hit pause, grab yours, and then come on back, because this conversation with Shelly-Anne is the kind that echoes. I am so honored to have Shelly-Anne McKay on the podcast. Really, she's a master certified coach, a producer, and the host of Craving Clarity, a docu-reality series where she helps people heal and rediscover themselves. She's also the co-founder of Unilome Agency, and she mentors recovery coaches around the world. What makes her work powerful is that it drips with her lived experience. Over 24 years, she's walked through addiction, trauma, silence, and reinvention. For decades, she told other people's stories, and now she's telling her own and inviting others to do the same. Today, we'll explore how she found the courage to speak and how she balances vulnerability with visibility and what that journey looks like beyond. Shelly-Anne, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm truly honored to be here and to be a guest with you today. Thanks for having me
Absolutely.
here.
You bet.
Yeah.
Just in our first sort of couple of minutes, can you just walk us through one of the things I'm always fascinated by is where did alcohol or other addictions, because I know that you have multiple, where did they show up as in your family of origin? Like, what was that like for you growing up?
That's an interesting question because I think that family of origin is something that, I didn't look at until I got into my recovery process. And
Mhm.
it was actually in the process of doing like a genogram. Have you ever done those?
No, what is
A
that?
gen a genogram where you have to, it's like doing a family tree, except that you actually do the lines also of addiction,
Oh,
broken
yeah,
marriage, those sorts of things where they have the symbols. Yeah.
I
So
did
you've
that. In
done that
fact,
too.
I was gifted with an intervention, and that was one of the things. It was a 2-day like workshop with my family. That was one of the things together as a family that we did, was we traced
There
all of
you
these lines of potential addiction through the family.
Yeah, and that's what, like, for me, that was like a big aha moment, was to see that there was like actually like addiction in the sense mostly alcohol that I could, because there was a lot of people who in their family we didn't still talk or whatnot, so that was maybe difficult to get information. But to the people who I was able to speak with and had a connection with, I could see that alcohol clearly went back multi-generations. And for me, that was a big aha moment to see
Mhm.
that it wasn't just me and that I didn't have like the willpower to power through and white knuckle it, that it was actually something deeper going on. So it was kind of a bit of a relief to see that it had rippled through my family. So not necessarily on the street drug side of things though, but on the alcohol side for sure.
Yeah.
And
And that
so
growing
and
up,
it
it
was
was
very
like
normal.
normalized. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every family, event that we had, there was always alcohol, celebration, so it just seemed like it was like the thing to do until I realized like that it wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
So just give me a quick overview of your journey through addiction to the point where you were like, that's enough.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I think my first addiction was actually to sugar because now, I do a lot of work in the ultra processed food space, because I find that for myself, through my own healing journey, that I discovered that that was actually my first addiction when I was like 5, because I had memories of like the kids going out for recess and me staying back, and I would steal all the sugar stuff from their
Mm.
lunches, and I'm like, why on earth would I do that? But I was using sugar as a way to like soothe as a very young person. And then I think as I got into like my teenage years and started to have access to alcohol, I was, unfortunately, I was 12 and I was drinking pretty regularly. I was already in the bars, because I am tall and quite mature looking. I ended up getting into the bar with some fake ID really early. So, I mean, I was drinking pretty hard
Overachiever.
already by the 12, 13-year mark for sure. And so then I drank hardcore throughout junior high school, playing with a lot of street drugs at that time too, went off to university. It was just more, I don't, I remember being in the bar and studying. Like I can't even believe was doing that, but yeah. Um, and then all through university, just used a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. I felt pretty invincible to it, really. And then it was between 25 and 30 where I think like that my use just got the best of me because I was now working in the film and TV industry and music industry. And I just found that there was a lot of it around. Like everywhere I would be backstage or like at the parties, there was just always access to it and usually for free. And so, when you're with people, you partake. And so I didn't want to be the only one left out. So I found that it was in that era that I definitely got into a lot more trouble. If only I saved all that money, now when I look back. But I think I almost died, at that point because I think I was overworking and then also using a lot of things to like stay awake and go to bed so that I could do my job because I would be what I would call a high functioning, you know, alcoholic or addict, basically. Um, and I know that for some people that term is, not such a great one, but for me, that's what it was. I mean, I didn't land in prison. I didn't become homeless. I think you had a doctor, Brent, is Dr. Yeah, Dr. Brett Kessler. He was on here, and his story, I resonated with him because I didn't lose all of that. I was functioning at a very high level,
Yep.
making multi-million dollar deals at the table, but under the influence, usually. And so
Thousand
I almost
percent.
lost my life. Yeah. And then it was at the point of almost losing my life at 30 when the doctor said to me, you have to stop what you're doing. You're not going to see your next birthday. And quite honestly, I didn't believe him. I thought, oh, what does he know? I got this. And so I think I cut back a little at that point, but I didn't really go all in. But
Well,
then I
I want to pause
did
at that
18
moment
years
because
ago.
I read a
Yeah.
little bit on your website about that,
Yeah.
that you actually call it sort of a nervous breakdown.
Mm. Stress. Yeah. I feel like it was a bit of a stress breakdown.
Because I had one of those
Yeah.
in sobriety
Oh, yeah.
because I was still running my life at the same speed with all the same intensity, with all of the, voices in my head of overachieve and perfection and do all the things. And I was supporting my kids for years on my own. And then I got married and I was supporting my family on, pretty much the lead breadwinner and doing all the things. And I didn't, when we have alcohol or drugs in our system, it numbs all that anxiety.
Hmm.
But without it, it amped it
Yeah.
up because it was all like uncured, unfiltered. And I ended up like with a health condition that just leveled me for a year and a half. And it
Oh,
was due to
yes.
all of that overrunning my life. So,
Yeah.
when I read that in your bio, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's not uncommon. I mean, I studied a lot on the functional medicine side of things too, and it's not uncommon for people like us who are these high achievers to just be running on nothing but adrenaline, really burning out your adrenals and,
Yep.
causing autoimmune system issues. Usually, a lot of autoimmune conditions will come. A lot of my clients have autoimmune, and they're,
Right.
high performance folks, but their health has taken a bit of a hit. So yeah, I would say it was definitely a stress thing. And you're right, like once I got into recovery, figuring out how to actually deal with all of that stuff coming up now that I
Mhm.
was before just, dampening out with substances was now
Yeah, I mean,
there.
we just have our sympathetic nervous system going on full bore, and it it can't, it's not sustainable.
Hmm. Hmm. When did you realize that that was what was going on for you? You were already in sobriety then?
Yeah, it was actually back in 2020. So
Okay.
I was 15 years sober and working like crazy, and because I work from home, it didn't slow down.
Yeah.
And I woke up one day and I just felt off, and I felt like a little dizzy, and my lips were going numb, and I was like, said to my
Mm.
husband, I said, this isn't right. Something's not good here. And so we went to the urgent care. They immediately shuttled me down to the ER. They did, all the tests for the scary stuff, stroke and heart attack and all those things. It was none of those. And it took me 5 months of going to different doctors for every kind of diagnostic test possible. But they eventually diagnosed me with something called vestibular migraine.
Mm.
And
My sister actually just got diagnosed with that, so I'm familiar.
like migraines, you think
Yeah.
of as headaches. I didn't have headaches, but all
Yeah.
that a migraine is an electrical storm in your brain. And for most people, it's in the section of your brain that gives you headaches. For vestibular migraine, it's in the section of your brain that affects your balance
Balance. Yeah.
and also your, like, gives you brain fog. And in my case, also marble mouth.
Wow.
And so from the point that I started that, for a year and a half, I didn't drive because it was too hard. I could hardly even walk down the sidewalk. I couldn't carry on
Hmm.
conversations longer than about 5 minutes at a time. And I eventually got hooked up with a woman who was a psycho psychologist for people with anxiety and brain disorders. And she was the one who like got me going on the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And we really talked about all of that electrical storm just needed to be calmed down. And I
Mm.
had to learn a whole new vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I think this is relevant to people in recovery as well, because we use things like, I'm just going to grind out this work, and I'm going to
Yeah.
like push myself to get these things done. And I'm going
Push.
to
Yeah.
like, and I'm going to like tackle these chores. And all of those things were exciting my nervous system and getting my brain worse. And I had to even
Yeah.
learn new vocabulary words like, I'm going to just chip away slowly at these things, or I'm going to
Mm.
play with these chores, or I'm going to
Yeah.
gently walk myself through this next phase. And even just the
Nice.
words made a big difference.
Oh, for sure.
Because I
For
think that people
sure.
who are struggling with substances, we're self-medicating.
Hmm.
And when you take those substances away, the thing that you were self-medicating over is still there, only now you don't have what has been your solution for all these years.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would say to clients is I say, you don't have a problem with alcohol or cocaine or meth. It's the life. That's what there's a problem with living life. And if we could just figure out how to do life in a way that's like healthy and balanced and where your nervous system is taken care of, you'll find that it's good.
Absolutely.
This other stuff will almost kind of like magically sort of melt away.
Right, because you don't need to
Yeah.
self-medicate anymore. So
Yeah.
sorry I took that little side trip,
Yeah.
but so
No, it's interesting.
you ended
Yeah.
up in this hospital. The doctor said if you don't make changes, you're going to die. And so you said you didn't listen?
I didn't really take him seriously at first because I thought, he doesn't know me. I can handle this kind of thing. And so I did cut back a little bit at that time, but then I was trying to think like, at what moment, like, was there sort of a big defining moment? And I think I just got, sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and I just got tired of constantly feeling like I'm going up but coming down equally as hard and if not harder. And so I think I just got tired of that at some point and knew that I deserved something better and that but I did, I couldn't imagine a life without alcohol and drugs. I mean, I remember saying to people, don't even invite me to the party if there's nothing there. Like, I don't even want to go. And I'm thinking, wow, was I ever a snob or what? That I would say that, that I just didn't even want to be invited. And like I couldn't imagine. And so I remember for me, it was just terrifying the thought of like going to parties without substances or, but I think that as much as I present like an extrovert, I think I'm what they call like an ambivert, where I'm like, I do need my, time solo to kind of recharge. But I've discovered since that that's really because I'm like what they would call like a highly sensitive person. And so I do, take on a lot, feel a lot. And so I do need that time to kind of recharge. But that's something that I discovered, through my recovery journey, but it was also connected to the whole nervous system piece because like you say, I mean, that's was my whole thing was that, I was just so driven in my work and in my career and always wanting to like excel and be at the top. My system just couldn't take that. And
Yeah.
so it's no wonder I was using anything and everything to try to like deal with what was going on. And now I feel like that's been a big part of the recovery journey, has been figuring out like how do I deal with all of this that's coming up, especially with the discovery of being highly sensitive. I discovered later in life ADD, things like this. And so now I'm like, oh, okay, all the puzzle pieces are sort of starting to kind of fit together. And I'm like, oh, this is why. So it's like now I have to really practice radical self-care. And I'm sure same for you because,
Mhm.
although you may have found ways, you still have to manage it and stay on top of it, I
That's
assume,
right.
like me.
I'm in quote unquote remission, whatever that means. But yes, if I allow myself to go there, I can to this day still feel like I'll start to feel brain fog come on
Mm.
if I do too much. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I hear you. I'm backing off. Um,
Yeah. Gives us this,
was
or it's
one
like
of
our
your
body gives us this clue, hey? Yeah.
yeah, was one of your fears that when you stopped doing all the substances that you wouldn't be as high performing?
Ooh, that's a good question. Was that I didn't think I'd be as high performing? No, I feel like I knew deep down always like that I was a high performer, but I feel like it was the alcohol that definitely made it easier to be able to connect with people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because like I do have a lot, like I still find even in recovery now, to go out to a social event, although I am extroverted, I'm very much looking forward to it. I have about a 24 to 48-hour period where I've like literally got to talk myself through going and all the benefits that I'm going to have as a result and that I'm going to be okay, and and yet I'm like 18 years recovery solid. And yet I still, have to practice self-care in that way and that some self-dialogue in terms of,
So
how I'm going to show
interesting.
up there. Yeah.
I'm
For
identifying with it
you?
so much. I call myself an introverted extrovert.
Yeah.
I do get social anxiety going into groups of people I don't know that well.
Yeah.
Um, and so the introverted part of me, I love having my alone time. I love
Yeah.
just sitting out back, listening to the birds, watching my dogs play. And yet, when I am with a group of people that I do like and enjoy, I just fill up. It fills my
Me
cup. It's
too.
like it makes me so happy. So um yeah, I understand that push and pull, that tug. And I think COVID and post-COVID allowed us to really lean into that, being on our own space, um, to the detriment really of making space and energy for gatherings.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think that some people underestimate like how hard it is to, and I don't want to say hard, I guess just how new it is to be going into social situations without substances. Because most people that I do know who were using substances, and most specifically alcohol, I mean they were doing it so that they would relax and go into spaces and events and be able to mix and mingle without problems. So I hear so many people talk about that, how that like they're afraid of like how are they going to socialize now without that buffer. And I think for
Yeah.
me that's what it was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make these deals, how am I going to make these relationships happen without this substance? But the cool thing is that I actually found out that I was better off without it, like I was more successful without, so in hindsight, oh my gosh, I think to myself, man, what deals would I have been able to close or make happen if I wasn't consuming, because I was performing already at such a high level.
Yeah.
I thought, man, if I wasn't doing, I could just imagine where I would have been. So I feel like, it was just like I didn't think that I could do it without the substances. But I've now since discovered in recovery that No, I'm just better because I've always had very much of a relationship strategy to like the work I do with people. Like I believe in building relationships and collaboration and partnership. That's very much how I like to roll. And now I feel like doing that and connecting with people in sobriety, I remember them fully. I remember the stories fully. I remember that, like all of that. And so I feel like I'm just able to connect at a much deeper level than ever before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but let me ask you this, because this is my experience is that I will go to conferences or meetings and you start out the evening and you're having these great conversations. And then as the evening goes on, you see them drinking and you see them
Mm.
not necessarily engaging in conversations that they're even going to remember or remember part of.
Yes.
So there's that. And then the other is I can't help but still, to this day, 20 years in, feeling like kind of left out when the next morning rolls around and they're all laughing hysterically about what idiots they made of themselves. And I was back in my room. And it's like
Mm.
if I was there, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I would have thought you guys are being idiots.
Yeah.
But it's just that crazy thing about like the trauma bonding that happens from ridiculous evenings.
Behavior. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is so fun. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because like I feel like it was actually Dr. Kessler who said the same thing on your because I was like I could relate to so much that he was saying about how that like I have no problems with being around alcohol either.
Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
have it in my home, I'll serve it to guests now. I mean, it wasn't that way always, but I certainly don't tolerate drunkenness, like drunken behavior. And he mentioned
Right.
that as well. And I'm for me, that's sort of my thing too. Like I'll go to the events, I'll have a great time. I can go dancing, I can do all of that with you. But it's there becomes a point at which it switches for me. And then
Yeah.
that's usually when I'm like, I'm out, like I tap
Yeah.
out. And I used to have a hard time with it because I would, I feel like I would experience FOMO. I was very afraid of missing out on stuff. But now I don't. And so the next morning, if I was sitting at the table and they were all talking about those stories, I think I would be like, "Oh, sucks to be you, hey," because like I don't have any of that. I'd probably be rubbing it in a little bit, like, "Oh yeah, I don't have a headache at all over here," Yeah,
That's
too bad you guys
awesome.
weren't smart like me and went to bed, or like,
I love
yeah. But
that.
it does take a big, yeah. I would just be honest about my feelings. I think around that would have to be it take a little bit of courageousness,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I've been in the situations where the entire table, they were all doing that and I was the only one not.
Hmm.
So,
Well, so let's talk about that. So you and I got sober similar time frames, and back then, like you just did not tell people that you were in recovery. You just masked it
mm-mm.
and put the lime in your soda and, carried on. So
Yeah.
tell me about how, when, and why you did start talking about this choice of yours.
Oh, that's such a hard one because I feel like I really struggled with being even open about my own recovery because I think as when I was first trying to get recovery, I was working as a film and TV producer and most of the meetings at that time, they weren't online. You had to go in person to do the meetings. And I remember being just terrified of walking through that door and finding most of my own crew in the other side of that door. So I was like, how on earth am I going to get recovery in these meetings? Like my ego
Yeah.
was just way too out of whack to walk through that door and then see people. So it was very much hidden, like you say. And so I did actually just start to do recovery more or less through private services,
Mhm.
hiring a therapist privately, hiring coaches, people like that who could help me, psychiatrists, I would just do trying whatever and anything. And so I think it took me quite a few years till I became comfortable really talking about it in public because even like a lot of my friends didn't know. Like I
Mhm.
kept it hidden interestingly enough. Like I don't know why if I just feared the judgment side of it and like that I would lose all my friends. And interestingly enough, I have lost most of those friends, made new friends because those friends now become less like interesting
Mhm.
um and now I'm probably the big drag to them, and so and for me they're no fun to me anymore because they pass out by 9 o'clock and I'm still ready to go. So um yeah, but I guess the out loud piece, I think it would have to be like the very first like article or interview that I did. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I have to speak out loud because, other people won't. Like, and we all have to somehow together be able to be courageous about this. And so I think it was actually, yeah, my very first one. And I think it might have been done by Jean McCarthy of the Bubble Hour. I think that she might have been the first person who actually interviewed me about sobriety. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like my family's going to hear this and they're going to hate me. And it caused some problems in the family for sure. One of my uncles was like, how dare she talk about, the alcohol in the family and whatnot. And I have to give my mom a lot of credit because, the first time family saw or heard of me saying something that was either in a magazine or whatever, then they kind of came to her and would give her a hard time because she was
Right.
she's my mom. But I think after talking to her enough about it, I'm like, look, but it's the truth. Like it's the truth what happened. I didn't lie. I'm not making up any stories here. And so I think her um coming to terms with, yeah, it is the truth, and that we're not making anybody look bad. We're just saying this is what it was. And so she started to stand up for me a little bit like that, and had told
Aw,
some of my other family
Mom.
members, well, it's the truth. It's what's happening. So that was kind of nice. Yeah.
I love moms like
So
that.
yeah. So
That's really
I think
cool.
that was
So,
a good one.
as you're kind of navigating through these years of not talking about it or slowly starting to, talk about it, were there certain practices or guideposts or tethers that you use to keep yourself centered in the midst of sort of feeling like you might be living a little bit of a double life? Or
Mm.
how did you care for yourself during those years?
Well, where I felt like I was living a double life. What do you mean when you say that? Like,
Well, maybe I used words that I apply to myself. Like
yeah,
nobody in my work world or even my friend world for the longest time knew. I didn't talk about it publicly for 18 and a half years.
yeah. Wow.
So it wasn't that I was living a double life, that I was inauthentic, but it was this major part of me that nobody knew.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know until after I did start speaking about it what a change that would make in me. I always say it like changed my cellular level, because
Mhm.
now all of me was open and authentic, and there's nothing left. You can ask me anything because it's all out there, right? um
Mm.
so I guess I was wondering, like, did it feel that way to you, and how did you sort of keep yourself whole or cared for
As I
during all
shared.
that?
I feel like it was a tough thing. I mean, I guess because in the work that we're doing, right, when you're a public figure, and people are looking up to you in that way, I was so afraid that I would be judged and criticized for it. But I did feel like I had to do it gently and I had to do it at the pace that felt right for me. And like, because I struggled with that quite a bit. I'm like, should I just come out and tell everybody, or should I not tell anyone, or should I just tell these three, or how did I do it? And I think it was through my therapist that I did come to the realization that, I would just almost like a volume dial, I would just turn it up really
Mhm.
slowly. And as I felt comfortable, I would share more and more. And so I think that was a really good approach because it allowed me to start talking about things. And then I would see that like somebody would reach out to me after maybe a magazine article or after a podcast or something, and they would say, hey, when you said this, I could really relate. And I think getting some feedback from people that were thankful that I shared something that was difficult, that kind of reinforced the whole like, oh, it is okay to talk about it because there are a lot of other people out there who don't have this platform to speak, and this could touch or change their life in some way. And so
Absolutely.
um so I feel like that sort of like slow dial up the volume worked for me.
Mhm.
But I guess in terms of taking care of myself in that practice, that was, I guess, how I did it, was just to make sure that I didn't crank the volume up too fast, too
Mhm.
quickly, because I
Yeah.
was ready to go there. Like I was like, oh, I'll rip the Band-Aid off, tell the whole world. But I'm glad that through counseling, it was decided that I would just do it a little bit slower. And because I'm kind of like, oh, I'll jump in the pool, like, run and just jump in the pool. And then I find out there's no water, I'm kind of one of those ones, So I'm glad I sort of took it slowly. Yeah.
It's so funny. I had the exact same experience with regards to my vestibular migraine that, I was like, I was out. Nobody knew why I was out. Fortunately, it was during COVID, so nobody was thinking
Wow.
about anything besides themselves in that moment. But I said to my therapist, I'm like, how am I going to tell people about this? Like that I can only work, 2 hours a day, maybe. And
Yeah.
she said, well, it doesn't have to be a big announcement.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can start with
And
just a
you felt the same.
conversation. I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
there's shades of gray here. It's not all black and white.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have to put up billboards and all,
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so that was a good self-care move. What about you? How'd
Yeah.
you take care of yourself in that? Like keep yourself grounded as you shared.
Well, my story is a little different because, again, at 18 and a half years, when we were at a conference and my now co-founder said to this group of women, she was on a panel, she's like, I'm just curious how many people here don't drink for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I had this big decision to make, right? And so I'm like
Yeah.
quietly raising my hand and I look around out of the corners of my eye because she knew about me, but nobody else did. And like 15% of the women in the room are doing the exact same thing.
Oh, let's say slowly.
And I'm
Yeah.
looking around and I know these people. And I didn't know that about them, and they didn't know that about me. So
Wow.
literally, we went to lunch afterwards, and I said to Laura, like, this can't happen anymore, but it has to start
Yeah.
with me. Like, I can't keep putting baby in the corner.
Wow.
So at that moment, it was a complete rip the band-aid off moment. She said to me, she's like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to speak on stages, I'm going to be on social media all over the place because that's who I am. But I think you should start a podcast. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, well, that's going to be open and out there then.
Oh,
And here we
amazing.
are.
That's
Here we
amazing.
are.
Good for you. Good for you.
So tell me about this docu-series that you're doing. When you and I first
Mm.
corresponded, you said that you were busy taping, and I was like, ooh, I want to see, I want to
Yes.
know all the things.
Yeah. Well, it's been kind of like one of those things, like when you talk about telling your story, I mean, I think like that's like been I have always secretly had this dream to be like either a dancer when I was a girl, little girl, I wanted to be like some
Mhm.
sort of a dancer, like the flash dance dancer.
Ooh, I love
And
Flashdance.
yeah, that was such a good movie. So like I wanted to be like her, that kind of a dancer, or an actress. That was sort of like my childhood dream. And interestingly enough, like I excelled at like dance and theater and stuff like that quite early. Then I had gone through some traumatic stuff in my teens that where I think I just kind of blocked everything off. I was like, yeah, I know there was a big shift there that happened. I was a victim of a violent crime, and it just changed. It rocked my
Mm,
world. Now all of a sudden I didn't trust and nothing was safe. And so then I was just too shy to go out and do all that stuff. And so then I think that that's kind of like what made me go from like wanting to be on stage and be the life of the story to like hide in the shadows. And so then I interestingly enough went into television film production, but I just spent all these years doing everybody else's stories. I even created my own travel show that was on NBC and ABC and Fox and about 36 other networks. And I could have like made myself the host of the show, but I didn't. Instead, I cast my sister. And,
mm,
but secretly I really wanted to be the one. But so for many years, I just went on like that. And then the show I did try to start it probably about 6 times. I'm going to say 6 or 7 times in the last 6, 8 years. And I feel like this is kind of where like my higher power was guiding me, because I would start to do the path of producing the show, but then it just like I think it was a part of like a process for me of like connecting to myself a little too, because I would see like, oh, I didn't really enjoy that, or that sucked the life out of me, or that edit was really brutal. And then I'd be like, oh, I don't really want to go that way. And so I think it was a bit of finding like how I would do my story and but I think that number one is that I really do believe in the power of coaching. And
mm,
I think because I've trained coaches all around, like literally thousands of coaches around the world, to do coaching with clients in recovery specifically. I feel like because I've seen the gift and the power of it, I think a lot of people are really missing out. not knowing what you can do. Like therapy is not for everybody. It is very helpful at many, many pieces and parts, but I also found that with therapists, some of them anyways, where I just felt like I was constantly stuck in the past. And
Mhm.
I just wanted to make this forward movement. I didn't want to keep rehashing the trauma and rehashing the things I was going through. And so um I felt like, that gift of like what I can do with people in sometimes a very short period of time. I'm like, how can I like actually share this in a way that's meaningful? And then there's always people, it seems like, who want to do coaching but can't for various reasons. And so I just thought, maybe this is the way to do the show. And so then I decided that what I would do is, so this season, so we're shooting all the different, all the episodes right now. There'll be like 12 episodes total for season one. And each show we have like one guest that's the featured guest. So somebody who's maybe struggling at some area or part of their life, and they literally have been very highly motivated to try to create change or to do something differently, but for whatever reason, they just cannot seem to get the traction. And they don't
Mm.
know what is blocking them or holding them back or whatnot. But they're willing to just do whatever to try to like make progress towards that now. And so then that's
Mm.
where I step in. And so there's a bit of an application the guest does. We pre-screen to see like, are they really ready to do this breakthrough and have this
Mhm.
moment where they move to the other side? Because I think sometimes people say they want to move, but they may not be ready to. And so, so if they really want to move, and we can see that, we have a little bit of a recording they do to submit for their background, what
Mhm.
they've done, where they've been, and why they really want this. And then, if they're a match, then we go ahead and I do a breakthrough session with them. And so that can take up to 90 minutes. And normally, so that would be like $500 normally to do that with me.
Mhm.
But they get it as a guest on the show, and then we follow up with them about 24 hours later, and then again 14 days later, just to see how they're doing. And so far, every guest has received an incredible breakthrough on the
Mm.
show. And then I've also mixed into it like some of my own story about like me coming forward, because I think that that's where my clients actually motivate me a ton too. Because when I see them lean in and do things that really matter to them or that they're scary, then they kind of even motivate me to go and do my things too. And so I have to give all my clients for the last, 13 years credit, because they've inspired me to go off and do this too. And so now I'm sharing a little bit about my own story alongside the people that I'm
Mhm.
like guiding through these breakthroughs. And so it's going to take us a while because it's a lot of filming and a lot of video footage. But I'm really excited to share it. And I think it's going to just show people that like they're like you're never too late for a breakthrough in your life and or a new
Yeah.
beginning. And so whether that's somebody in recovery or not in recovery, this applies. So if any of your listeners or somebody that feels like that's them and they're like, I've tried it all but I just can't seem to get it, they'd be a great candidate for the show too. So
And where would they
yeah.
apply?
They would go to my website. So if you go to the Shelly-AnneMcKay.com, there's like a menu at the top that says TV show. And if they go there, it'll actually have the application form. So that would be the first bit. And then so once you do the application form, keep an eye on your inbox and your spam folder. Because I know sometimes the
Mhm.
automated, like, oh, you're ready to go to the next step. Sometimes that stuff lands there. So just watch. And yeah. So we're looking for
It's
men
like
and
it's
for
like
women.
extreme makeover for the inside,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. That's a great way of putting it. An extreme maker for the inside. That's it, 100%. And it's been kind of cool because the people who've all come have really said, like, they're like, you're never going to be able to help me.
Yeah.
And I have every single person.
Oh.
So, and it feels, and that's why I'm doing it, right? Because like this is just going to be a very expensive project, I'm sure. But at the same time, like I don't care. It just brings me joy, and it was about me finding a way to bring joy and fun back into my life. And I was so scared to go back into TV and film sober because I thought it was going to take me back down into the drugs and alcohol side of things. But then when I could see that I could do like some of this stuff and not go back there, I was like, oh, I could do this. And so, yeah. So I'm excited to be tapping into what, brings me joy and taps into my creativity and do it in a way that serves other people and makes a difference in their lives too. So kind of a
You have
win-win.
come to life since you started talking
Yeah.
about this project. Your face is
Yeah.
glowing, your energy is
Yeah.
up. It makes me so happy to see that you're doing something like this. And I, for one, can't wait. So when does it launch?
That's a great question because I was like, as a type A, I had set a very specific date and I was like working really hard. Then I thought, you know what? This is really important for me to be about like the best stories possible and not like hit a deadline. And so I gave myself permission to like remove the deadline. So I don't have a specific launch date just yet. But we're hoping that it's going to be this fall, for sure. We've got first episodes are ready to go already. And I just want to make sure I have enough of them ready because part of what took me out in the industry too was working with these incredibly crazy deadlines and then the pressure of those deadlines. And so I kind of wanted to approach this whole series in a way that it stayed fun and it
Yes.
doesn't become this like, oh my gosh, I got to get this done because the next episode has to drop, like I don't want to be in that place with it. So that's why I can't give you a very specific date. But what I've told people is to go to the YouTube channel, which I sent your team the link to that. And so people can go and just subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's nothing on there yet about the show, but when the first episode gets loaded there, you will be notified if you're a subscriber that it's ready. So,
Cool. We'll
yeah.
definitely put that in the show notes. Thank you. So,
Yeah,
last question I
absolutely.
have for you. So, for anybody
Mhm.
who's listening and has kind of heard this evolution of Shelly-Anne, but they haven't yet kind of gone public, what would you say to them?
Mm. What would I say to them? Well, I'd probably ask them a question and I would probably ask, what would be the biggest fear in going public and see what they say to that because I think what stops one person can be very different from the next one. And so I think I would encourage the person to like take a look at like what is the fear really? What's behind it? And then seeing like if it's like challenging that thought maybe because I think
Mhm.
sometimes we think that we can't do something but we really are pretty amazing and resilient humans when you really look at it um and then I think I would look at the why and challenge that thinking like is it really true, is it really true? Because I find that our minds can do such crazy things and make you believe the most horrible stuff. Our minds are not usually their best friends in so many ways. And so, I think it can keep you from living your best life. And I think that for me, when I finally had the courage to begin to live out loud, especially when it came about sobriety, that I made more friends who didn't drink. I got invited to more things where there was alcohol-free, options. And so I think like, it can open up and expand your world if you're open to sharing about it. But I get that that takes some courage. And I think then my other piece of advice would be just to lean into relationships, whether that's through 12 step or some other sort of like fellowship, or just lean into finding relationships with others who don't drink as well, and then trusting your own internal guidance in terms of like when it is right for you to say it for you too, and don't be pressured to do it before you feel ready,
Yeah,
because otherwise I think that can just result in remorse and shame and a relapse, which we don't
for sure.
want. So yeah.
And the gift of even just becoming open about it within your own community. Like you don't have to start a podcast, you don't have to do those things. You can, but the gift is
Yeah.
you, at least everybody I've talked to has said, I have had the most meaningful conversations with others because this stuff touches every family and every person knows somebody who um and we can actually help other people through the strength that we demonstrate in
Totally.
being open about it.
Yeah. And so sometimes what you think, you dare not say out loud might be just the other thing that somebody needs to really, really hear. And like you could change their life in sharing
Yeah.
that. That's been my experience where whenever I was like, oh, should I say this? And then I do, someone steps out of the shadows and was like, oh, I'm so glad you said that because that happened to me too, or that was my experience. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
One
you
of, one
never
of our
know who you
guests,
can
Andy
touch.
Ramage, who's like one of the OGs in this space, he said when he first wrote his first little book, he put it out on his website as a Word document converted into a PDF. And he said, all I wanted to do was just help one person.
Mhm.
That was it. And now he's built this empire. But When we start
Yeah.
with a motive of just knowing that our words can help one person, we just never know where it's going to take us.
Yeah. That is so true. And I think a lot of people think that they just can't have any impact, but you'd be surprised. Yeah,
Hmm.
one person hearing your words and making a difference is pretty big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Man,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to you. This has just been really cool to hear your story and to kind of dig into that whole what the alcohol is all about and
Mm.
knowing that our healing starts with putting down the substance, but it just skyrockets from there with all the ways that we learn about ourselves and we heal.
Yeah, definitely.
And to
Yeah.
those of you listening, you know, it's also a reminder to me that it's not about doing it perfectly, right? It's about being real and that your own woundedness and your own scars, they matter. They matter because we are sharing the human existence. People are more attracted to people that they can relate to than to the perfect and shiny. So I want to invite you to think about this. What part of your experience have you silenced? Where in your story are you ready to find more courage or more clarity or more connection? And if you feel pulled to lead or to speak or to share your message, maybe your next breakthrough starts at Amplify Sober Voices. Remember, it's our 1 day conference for those who want to make an impact by speaking their truth. Head to amplifysobervoices.com and join the movement, redefining what sober leadership looks like. And if this episode moved you, please do me a favor, subscribe or share, leave a review. It matters because while you're listening now, somebody else needs to listen. And these things help the YouTube algorithm get there because you never know who is suffering in silence and needs to hear this. So thank you for listening. Shelly-Anne, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for
Stay vulnerable,
having me.
stay vulnerable, stay brave, and keep letting your sober voice be heard.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being an inspiration to me as well to do that.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.